Okay, there you go.
Okay, so here is our textbook for the 5th and 6th grade Latin students. It's Unit 1 in the Cambridge Latin curriculum, Cambridge Latin course. And this book, we enjoy this book a great deal in school. It's a series of stories that the children enjoy, and it helps them to learn Latin because they get interested in these stories. But at the same time, they're learning about ancient everyday life. And one of the first things they learn about is the ancient Roman house. And the genius of this book is that it interweaves the actual details of people and artifacts together with the compelling fictional story. So they're learning about cultural ancient Rome. And I think you'll see in this presentation what's going on here. You'll see my pictures that I took when I was in Pompeii to show you what it looks like. But you'll recognize some of the same things in the pictures in the book. I'm going to show you pictures that are actually from this book, and I'll show you what's in Pompeii. I was there in 2014. That's when I took these pictures. So let's open to the first page in the book. This is what your children will see. There's the same picture. This is Lucius Caecilius Jucundus. This is an actual man who lived in ancient Pompeii. They found his bronze bust there in a house that they identified as the house of Lucius Caecilius Jucundus. And there's an inscription under this bronze bust that identifies it as him. So we know who this is. This is Lucius Caecilius Jucundus. And they found a big box, a big heavy chest with 153 business records. They're on wax tablets. And it's amazing. When I read that, I said, wouldn't wax tablets melt, in a volcano, a volcanic eruption? But I mean, you can read these with great difficulty, I guess. You can read these tablets, and it shows that he was a very successful businessman. It's all business transactions. He was a banker. He seems to have been an auctioneer. He owned several businesses. He owned farms. I mean, he was a wealthy man, and he lived in a big, beautiful house in Pompeii. So this is where the story is based on, it's mostly fictional, but it's based on this man, Lucius Caecilius Jucundus. So turn to the next slide. Okay, now this is his family. It says Caecilius est pater, right? Caecilius is the father. Now it looks a little like some of our Regina Pacis families. We have some big families, but in ancient Roman times, your family included your slaves. So the people in the front it's his wife there on the left, and his children are there on the left, and maybe a few relatives. And in the back are his slaves, and he was the pater familias of all of them. He's considered the father of all of them. That's his household. So we don't know exactly how many slaves he had or how many children he had, but this might be a typical family who would live in one of these houses in ancient Pompeii that we're going to be looking at on this house tour. So next slide. So here is a map. This is just to remind you of where Pompeii is. It's south of Rome. It's on the coast. That's a region called Campania. And this was an area that some wealthy Romans built houses in this area because the climate was pleasant there, and it was a little more peaceful than Rome. So it might have been a vacation place for some of them, but it was also a busy port town. It was a prosperous port. There were about 20,000 people living in Pompeii when Mount Vesuvius erupted. So the next one. So here's a little focusing in. It shows you there's Mount Vesuvius, big crater there. Pompeii is south of Mount Vesuvius. And another town that got buried that they've excavated is Herculaneum, which is to the west of Vesuvius, and Neapolis is Naples up there. That's also an ancient city that did not get apparently the volcanic eruption, the wind was blowing in a southern direction. So Pompeii got buried in a matter of a few days. Pompeii got completely buried by the eruption of Mount Vesuvius in 79 AD, and Herculaneum got buried. And there were some other towns as well. Next slide. So here's a picture from our book. In this book, we're following along the story of Caecilius and his family. We're enjoying what life was like in ancient Pompeii. And the last chapter in this book, Mount Vesuvius erupts. And of course, everyone was taken unawares. Nobody knew this was going to happen. They didn't have volcanologists in those days. So it started to erupt, and it says Mons Iratus, the angry mountain. And as I said, the mountain erupted and completely covered Pompeii to this, it had to be abandoned. And eventually it was forgotten and it was completely preserved. And it's incredible. I don't think there's any other site anywhere in the world where a town of that size has been completely preserved. It's like frozen in time. I mean, people were going about their business and suddenly they had to leave. And they know that at least 1,500 people were killed. They found the remains of about 1,500 people. There are probably more there too. So we can uncover this and find out there's so much wealth of information in this amazing town. It's an amazing place to visit. And then you can also, they've also excavated Herculaneum. So we're going to be going on a house tour so you can see what it was like to live in this town, or get some idea of it. And that's what your students, your children are doing. They're learning about what it was like to live in an ancient Roman house. And they've looked at some of these pictures that I'm going to show you. Okay, the next one. Okay, so here's my first photo. Here's Mount Vesuvius today. It blew its top off. This is the forum here. So we're not going to talk much about that. We're focusing on houses today. I mean, there's so much you could talk about, but we're just going to we're going to do a whirlwind house tour today. So the next picture, here's a street, typical street. So you'll see people walking up and looking inside doors there on the right. Those are the entrances to Roman houses. It's amazing. We spent the whole day there. We got there early in the morning. We walked around and looked at things. We left and ate lunch right next to the site, and we came back in the afternoon. We spent the whole day there. And you walk up and down the street, you look in those doors, and those are the houses. Those are where people lived. And these are the wealthy people. There were wealthy people living there, and they built beautiful houses. But as I said with my children, you notice the first thing that you notice that's different. I say, well, what's different about this? This is a typical residential street. What's different about it? Well, it doesn't have lawns. There's no lawns. It's like the doors to the houses are right up against the sidewalk like that. So that's something that the children will notice and be surprised about. Okay, next picture. So here's a picture of the street from our book. And this is the first lesson. This is in the first lesson in the book. It says, Cerberus est in via. Cerberus, he's the dog, is in the road. So this is the entrance to Caecilius's house, and there's his faithful dog, watchdog. So next slide. And here's a typical entrance to a Roman house. You can see it's very grand. They're trying to make a good impression. They have two Corinthian columns. They have it's a huge door. You can see the man standing there. It's supposed to be impressive. And the word for door is Janua. So this is the Janua, the entrance of the house. Next slide. Okay, so apparently in Caecilius's house, there actually is a mosaic of a dog in the doorway. It's not this mosaic. When I was there, I didn't specifically take pictures of Caecilius's house because I wasn't teaching from this textbook at the time. So I was just taking general pictures. But this particular mosaic is in another house. So people had these watchdogs, and it says Kawe Kanem. And this is a nice mosaic that somebody had in the entrance to their house. Kawe Kanem is beware the dog. I guess that's where that expression comes from. Beware, Kawe Kanem, beware the dog. All right, next slide. So here's what a house looks like. My connection to the internet is unstable. Okay, I hope not. Okay, here's what the house, a typical floor plan of a Roman house. It shows you what it looks like, the elevation of the house, the roof, and you can see there's a skylight or a opening in the roof of this house. You don't see many windows in the house, but you see that it has an opening in the roof because it was a different, I point out to my students, is different climate. It's hot there, usually in the summer. In the winter, it's kind of cold. So you didn't have, your windows were high up. You didn't want to let a lot of heat in. And then they had the entrance in the roof, and underneath, if you look at number 4, there's a pond, or what would you call that? A small pool, just a decorative pool with water in it. And this is very, if you look, you'll see that house after house has that same layout. So this is the preferred layout of a wealthy man's house. And number 1 is where you come in. That's the Janua there. Okay, next slide. Here's another view. We're going to keep looking at this view of the house. So on the left, you come in the door. That's the Janua is on the left. The vestibulum is the entrance. And you come into this area called the atrium. You see that? And that's that area that has the pool in it, the impluvium. I think my next picture shows the atrium. It shows a picture from the book. Go to the next picture. Okay. Yeah, okay. So Metella est in atrio. So Metella is Caecilius's wife in this story. She's a fictional character. We don't know what her name, what his wife's name was, but this is the illustration here. And she's standing in the atrium of the house.
Oops, sorry.
There it is. If I go back to that. Okay, so the atrium was a big central hall with a lot of rooms branching off of it. And here is where the family would receive guests and maybe entertain people. This atrium has a sofa in it. I don't know if they called that a sofa, but anyway, it's a place where you could sit and receive people. And I guess it was very pleasant. You had a pool of water in the middle there. It's nice. Okay, next picture. So that shows you an outline of the atrium, and you can see a lot of rooms. The cubiculum is the bedroom. So your bedrooms faced into it, and the tablinum is the study, and the triclinium is the dining room. So some of your rooms had doors that faced into the atrium. Okay, so next picture. So here's a ruin. Here's a typical ruin of an atrium. You could see the pool in the middle. You can see some of the doors. This one is overgrown. I mean, in Pompeii, they can't keep up with, I mean, it's such a big site. There's a lot of overgrown sites. And in the back, we're going to talk about that. That's a garden back there. They had an enclosed, these houses all had enclosed gardens. So we're going to talk about that later on. So there's another, if you go to the next picture, this shows you this atrium, they restored the roof so you could see what it might have really looked like. So you can see it's a little bit dark in there. It's nice and cool. It was probably, to get out of the summer heat. And you can see on the walls, they're painted. Those are frescoes, right? Like painted. It's a fresco, of course, is plaster. You're painting with plaster. And that was very common. I mean, everybody had beautiful painted walls in their houses. Wealthy. And on the floor, you have mosaics. Okay, next picture. I feel like I'm gonna run out of time. Okay, so here's the impluvium, is that pool. And here, this is a famous statue that they found in Pompeii of a dancing faun. So again, nice art, you know, beautiful art, mosaics in there, right? Next picture. And here's another atrium. In the back of this atrium is the Lorarium. You see the two columns, and then there's a shrine back there. Every house had a shrine to their own gods. Every family had its own household gods. The Romans were very much polytheistic, and they all had their own particular gods that they worshiped, and they had a shrine. That's called the Lorarium. And every house, you'll see as we go through, you'll see more of these shrines. Okay, next picture. So here it shows, I'm just showing you this picture again, because on the left in the back of the room, you'll see there's the Lorarium of that house. All right, next picture. Okay, now, so Metella est in atrio, et Caecilius est in tublino. Okay, so he is in the tublinum. It's the study of the house. He's in, this is where he, remember, you'll see in the next picture, this is where he conducts business. This is where there it is. It's in the center of the house. He conducts his business there. He was a banker. He had people coming in. He was keeping track of his money, of his accounts. They discovered all his business records in that room. Okay, next picture. And this house is remarkable. This is actually in Herculaneum. A few pictures here are in Herculaneum. That is a preserved wooden partition between the atrium on the left and the tublinum on the right. That was actually preserved in the eruption. They found it that way. I think this is a reproduction of what they found. They used to have the original there, and they put it away somewhere. So there was a wooden partition between the atrium and the tublinum, or the study. Okay, next picture. Now, the next room is the triclinium, and we see in this picture, Quintus is the son in this story. He wasn't actually, Caecilius did actually have a son named Quintus. He's a real person, and he's dining with his friends in this picture. And what's unusual, of course, the children will see this right away. They're not sitting down, they're lying down. The dining room, what that literally means, three couched room, triclinium, right? And there were three couches in there, and wealthy people ate lying down. They reclined to eat, and there was a servant in the back serving them. Okay, I wish we had that in our house, but we don't. And there it is. That triclinium is in the middle of the house. Many houses had a second triclinium in where it says exedra in the back. They might have had a dining room back there as well. And so in the summer, they could enjoy that garden area. All right, next picture. There's a one that shows you in the middle, there's some kind of a platform where a table would be. Next picture. Here's a dining room. This is where they could show off their wealth and their beautiful mosaics. And well, this is frescoes here in this dining room. Next one. There's a couple more. This dining room is famous. It has a wonderful mosaics. And the next one. This is a very famous triclinium. This is from the Villa of the Mysteries. These are very famous paintings, very artistic, very skilled artist was at work here with these paintings. It's amazing. I mean, we could have spent a whole time just talking about these paintings. Next one. So anyway, that was the dining room. Now remember, the bedrooms, the cubiculum are the bedrooms, and they were off of the atrium in the front. And here it says Clemens, he's a slave, Clemens est in cubiculo. Okay, he wouldn't be sleeping in there, right? He'd be working in there. Next one. So there's the cubiculum off of there were however many, the other little rooms were all cubicula. Next one. And I'm going to show you, look, keep an eye on that. Now go to the next picture. This is a cubiculum, and you can see they copied the looks of it. I didn't, I just took this picture, but it looks very similar to the one that's in the book. And if you could see through the doorway, that's a lararium. That's one of that in that house. The lararium is right outside the door of that cubiculum. The next picture. And this is from the Metropolitan Museum of Art. This is a bed. This is actually not from Pompeii or Herculaneum. It was from a villa near Rome, and they think it's from around the year 160 AD. So it's a little bit newer, but this is some kind of an ornate bed. This is very nice furniture. And if you'll remember, that was what they showed. They showed a bed very similar to this in the book in that cubiculum picture. So that's in the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Yeah, you're speeding me along.
Only a little tiny bit.
Yeah, I know. I'm running out of time. I knew that's what happened. Okay,
That's
so
right.
Lucia is the daughter. It says Lucia est in horto. So every house, this is of course wealthy people, every house had a garden in the back. Remember, they didn't have a lawn in the front. So they had a beautiful private garden in the back. And that area around it is called the peristylium. And those were columns. Every house had this colonnade around the garden. Okay, next one. So here's an example of a peristylium this is in Herculaneum. There's another one. Next one. Next one. Yeah, here's another one. Wait, yeah.
Sorry,
okay.
I went past it.
In this one, you can look in and see the rest of the house. If you look, you could look ahead and see other parts of the house. The next one. Now this house had, not only did it have a peristylium, you could see that area there in the background, but it had another even bigger garden in the back of the house. So this was a very big, wealthy house, this one. Next one. Okay, and then it says, Grumio est in culina. So this is another slave. Grumio was the cook. Grumio is in the kitchen. And I don't really have any pictures of the back of the house. If you go to the next, do I have another floor plan? Yeah, okay, there's the culina. Next to it is the latrina. We get the word latrine. And the servants' rooms where they slept would have been back here. So they probably would have been in very close quarters, just places to sleep. And our house tour ends here because we're all snobs. We only want to see how the wealthy people live. But frankly, I don't have any pictures. I didn't take any pictures of how the poor people live. So
You want me to
anyway, so we have just a few more.
Yep.
So here's a nice street scene. I was there with my children. These are 4 of my children. I put this in here to encourage you to go to Pompeii if you get a chance and take your family. It's a family-friendly place. It's amazing. It's one of the best places you'll go to. And then finally, the last picture, Bernardus in horto said it. Just a little bit of humor there. Latin teacher humor that I got from some Latin teacher Facebook.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's great. All right, let me pull us off and